Hey Cyberpunkers, and welcome to Preacher Episode 1 and 2 Series Talk Review. Episode 1, well, if you're not a hardcore Preacher fan, this episode drags out a lot, and you might not get into the series at all based on this one episode alone. Episode 1 was to allow the audience to get a better understanding and more familiar with the characters of the show. That being said, let's go through the highlights of this episode and hopefully get a better feel for the show. Episode 1 starts off with an alien-type being flying through the cosmos. We all understand from it is it's looking for a host of some sorts, from an African preacher to a Russian Satanist, and even Tom Cruise, before finding Jesse. In the comics, this flying entity is called Genesis, a half-breed spawn of an angel and a demon. The reason why it accepts Jesse is that Jesse himself is the right combination of good and evil. The introduction of some comic book familiars, such as Arseface, Cassidy, and Tulip, are nothing less than spectacular. Cassidy is our residential vampire that's straight from the comic books. Tulip and Jesse, previous relationships was strictly romance in the comics, whereas in the series, it appears they are some type of partners in crime. Oh, and let's not forget about Eugene, aka Arseface. Remember, when the comics came out in the mid-90s, Eugene was a big fan of Nirvana and Kurt Cobain and decided to one day emulate the famous rock star's own suicide. Unsuccessful in his attempt, Eugene's face was left permanently disfigured, hence Arseface. What is Genesis's power once fused with Jesse? As you saw at the end of episode 1, with Ted opening his heart, Jesse is empowered with what he calls in the comic books the Word of God. Whatever Jesse says to any living thing, they will obey. Episode 2 opens with a man with his wife and sick child. This man is known in the comic books as the Saint of Killers, a ruthless murderer in life who becomes the enforcer of heaven. Cassidy meets Eugene for the first time and quotes the exact same lines he says in the comic books. "That fella's got a face like an ass." DeBlanc and Fury try to exorcise Genesis from the passed out Jesse using a coffee can, a music box, and singing an old song. It doesn't work. By the way, none of this are actually in the comic books. After Cassidy buries DeBlanc and Fury behind the church beneath the same tree we saw the Native Americans hang from the 1881 scene, soon after that we see DeBlanc and Fury alive again, speaking with Sheriff Root. We see Jesse use his powers again, but this time Jesse says what he is capable of doing. He finds the bus driver, beats the fear of God in him, and commands him to forget about young girl he's been lusting off. And then once again at the end of the episode, he commands Tracy Locke to open her eyes. Episode 2 really brings the feel into the show, and the cliffhanger makes you want to see if the Word of God worked on Tracy.